It's been 16 days since the Occupy movement began. Protesters are still gathered in Admiralty, Causeway Bay and Mongkok. And student leaders tonight insist people won't disperse until the government responds to their demands. Several sections of roads have been reopened to traffic, though, as the police peacefully remove some of the barriers set up by protesters in Central and Wan Chai early this morning. The clashes broke out in the afternoon as groups of people tried to break through the protesters' barricades at the core rally zone in Admiralty. Groups of masked men were spotted gathering on the roadside of Queensway near Lippo Centre at around 1 p.m. About half an hour later, they started charging towards the protesters. Some were carrying knives and other sharp tools. They cut the plastic ties that kept the barricades together. It took a number of police officers to keep the situation under control. More men arrived and started to fight with the protesters who were trying to hold the fort. The police arrested 3 men aged between 18 and 47 for common assault and possession of offensive weapons. At around the same time, a number of taxi drivers drove their vehicles up to the same barricaded area and made themselves heard. Large groups of people also showed up, demanding that the Occupy protesters open up the roads. It became a heated exchange as police officers called for the anti-Occupy demonstrators to control their emotions. But more people turned up to try to get the occupiers off the roads. Police formed a human chain to separate the two sides, raising a sign warning people not to cross the police cordon. Officers later opened up a passage for the anti-Occupy protesters to leave. On the other side of Queensway, near the Justice Drive flyover, 2 trucks arrived to remove the barricades and other obstacles set up on the road. The protesters stopped the trucks and demanded the drivers get out. Officers rushed to the scene and separated the 2 groups. The police reminded protesters they're illegally occupying roads.
Many of the roads in Hong Kong has been unlawfully occupied for days, for over 2 weeks already, and the normal lives of the general public has been seriously affected, resulting in much social grievances and many confrontations has occurred, causing injuries to both citizens and police.
Hui also warned protesters against reinforcing existing obstacles or setting up new ones, saying the police will collect evidence to determine if there's been any breach of the law. Alex Chow, Secretary General of the Federation of Students, tonight condemned the use of violence against peaceful protesters. He suspects the attacks were premeditated and coordinated. He also criticized the government for refusing the demonstrators' request to open up the area in front of the east wing of the central government offices for them to move their protest off the roads.
Motorists can now access certain roads that have been blocked by Occupy protesters. Police this morning removed some barricades from Central, Admiralty and Mongkok, and the police said today they will move in to remove obstacles in Queensway in Admiralty and Yee-Wall Street and Causeway Bay, but they stopped short of saying when. Police stressed they were not trying to disperse Occupy protesters. Stephanie Choi reports.
The government explained this afternoon why it decided earlier today to turn down the Occupy advocates' request to reopen the central government office's East Wing forecourt.
The forecourt has its functions to fulfill as a vehicular circulation point as well as a drop-off and pick-up point. That is why the protesters, by seeking to move their occupation points into forecourt, is in fact another kind of occupation that would paralyze the operation of the central government offices.
Early this morning, police officers removed barricades and water-filled barriers from Connaught Road Central and the Garden Road flyover. Meanwhile, officers in riot gear removed metal barricades and water-filled barriers from Cotton Tree Drive. One officer assured demonstrators that they were only retrieving government property and removing obstacles, not dispersing protesters. Dozens of demonstrators rushed to Gloucester Road to confront the police officers who were removing barricades outside the Academy for Performing Arts. They formed a line of defense using tents and supplies. Motorists can now access Fenwick Pier Street, Devoe Road Central outside the old Legislative Council building, and Chater Road. This truck driver said he's been stuck in traffic for 45 minutes each day over the past 2 weeks, but today that has dropped to 15 minutes. But the junction between Longwa Road and Tim Hwa Avenue remains inaccessible as demonstrators stopped government officials from entering the central government offices this morning. Police also attempted to clear barricades set up by protesters on Mongkok Road in Kowloon, but demonstrators prevented them from doing so. The occupiers reinforced the barricades on nearby streets. The junction of Argyle Street and Portland Street outside Langham Place has been reopened after the barricades there were removed early this morning. The police said this afternoon obstacles on Queensway in Admiralty and Iwo Street in Causeway Bay will be removed without giving a timetable. Stephanie Choi, TVB News.